Episode 2 of Daily Coach TV is going to be live on July 8th, that's a Wednesday, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. If you aren't familiar with Daily Coach TV, it's a brand new live stream show, 45 minutes long, and it's co-hosted by WNBA champion and Women's Basketball Hall of Famer Lin Dunn and Maryland Men's Basketball's Director of Process, Coach Josh Chambers. Our first episode featured 3 special guest coaches: Carol Hutchins from Michigan Softball, Marc Trestman from the Chicago Bears, and Jay Martin from Ohio Wesleyan Soccer. And together, the group of 5 coaches talked about core values. You can join the show live by registering at the link in the description. If you can't join us live, register anyway and we'll send you the replay that you can watch through the weekend. For those of you that can make it live, don't forget to bring your questions. We'll see you on July 8th.
Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the first ever Daily Coach TV episode. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're watching from. We are so excited to have you with us here today. I'm going to get into introducing our panel and my more accomplished co-host in a second, but I honestly think if you're on this call, you're in an elite tier of learner or leader and a small percentage of people that invest their time into growth and maybe getting outside of their comfort zone and being around other accomplished human beings and leaders and coaches, I think is a testament to you, and we're thankful for joining us. The plan with this project is 6 to 7 episodes once per month. We're going to announce stuff on the Daily Coach newsletter ahead of time, so keep an eye out for that newsletter for the topics and times of future episodes. We want this to be as value-packed of a 45 minutes to an hour session as possible every time. We want to give you as many nuggets of wisdom, as much resources, as many stories, and as much connection with leaders who have done it and have had success and have impacted thousands of individuals as we can. So we're not going to spend too much time on introductions, but I would be remiss if I didn't give you some or give some flowers to these incredible human beings on the call with me today. As I mentioned, I'm Josh Chambers. I'm your co-host here, but I'm joined by the incredible Coach Lin Dunn. Lin coached in the WNBA and won a WNBA championship. She coached college for 25 years, won over 400 games, went to multiple NCAA tournaments and a Final Four. But I think she would even agree with this statement. All of that is secondary to her transformational impact on not only the sport of basketball, but sports in general. And so I'm super grateful to have Lin kind of quarterbacking this thing with me. And then we have an awesome group, an awesome panel here with us today. We have Coach Carol Hutchins, who's broken every record you can think of in college softball at the University of Michigan. She's, in my opinion, one of the best leaders sports have ever seen, not because of her record, even though that would form a solid argument, but we'll get into it a little bit here, but just the type of human she is and the connection and the care she has for her athletes and the core values, which is our topic of discussion today, that she's brought with her over the years have been just remarkable. Coach Marc Trestman, who coached in the NFL in the CFL and has won championships, and now he teaches a course in law at the University of Miami. He has literally written a book on a lot of the topics we're gonna discuss today. Coach Trestman did some things in Chicago and won a Grey Cup and has done things at multiple different franchises and institutions that haven't been done again or haven't been done before that point. So we're super excited to have Coach Trestman with us, and then Coach Jay Martin, who is the current wins leader in his field at Ohio Wesleyan in soccer and collegiate soccer wins leader, and he has a wealth of experience as well. And just super excited to have all 3 of these guests with us today. And today, as I mentioned, we're discussing core values. Whether you've worked in sports or in business or you've coached a team, whether you realize it or not, you have core values, whether they're on your wall or you live them through your habits or your players, or taught them daily, they exist. I wanted to bounce one to Coach Hutchins here because I know we're all from different walks of life in different sports, different levels in different parts of the country. When you got the job at Michigan, I think you were a Michigan State grad, right? So you're in enemy territory. You're getting your chance to be a head coach, and I think you took care of the field. That you maintenance the field. You painted the lines. You did a lot of that stuff on your own, which speaks to who you are. And so there was probably some level of, hey, I don't have a ton of resources. I might not have a big staff. But can you speak to how, no matter whether you're the only coach or you have 15 coaches on your staff, there's still a way to translate and communicate those core values that are important to you?
Well, I have coached and played softball my entire life out of the state of Michigan. And for those of you who aren't as familiar with college softball, the season used to begin in March, and now it begins in February, which means we travel extensively the first 6 weeks of the season. But I like to tell people it was a long time ago, and it took me a few years, because you're right. I grew up in an era, as Lin can remember, when women's sports they had to have us. Title IX said you have to include women in this, but they didn't have to treat us equally or value us or give us any resources. So the resource was I pulled the weeds, I raked the field, and I pulled the dandelions, and then I tried to teach them how to hit and throw. So you didn't have a whole lot of extra time to work on your coaching skill sets and improve yourself. And I had part-time assistants and a part-time assistant. But once I got going a little bit, it really struck me that people would marvel when we'd come out in February or March and play well, and they'd be like, wow. And it'd be our first time out on dirt since the fall. And I said, well, I learned a long time ago, we just find a way to get it done. And we all have different challenges in our programs. Mine happened to be weather and practicing outdoors. I said, but if you look at the scoreboard, you see Michigan and you see opponent. You see win and you see lose. You don't see what the excuse is. Well, we have to travel. We got delayed. We only got 4 hours sleep. Well, it's been cold here. We haven't thrown a ball outside in 6 months. We just found our way to be successful because my duty was to make Michigan as great as it could be on the field. And I learned at that time of life as well, as I was evolving, that we were only going to be limited in how good we were if we didn't create standards of culture for our success. And I learned it the hard way when kids would break rules and basically slap their student athlete colleagues in the face by disrespecting that everybody else followed rules, when I didn't have my own standards of holding everybody to the same accountability. And it really was an episode that happened in the late 90s. We were pretty good. We've been to the World Series now 2 or 3 years in a row. And I had one really strong pitcher and player who elevated our whole program when we got her. It just elevated what we had. And she was a really driven kid. But what happened was our men's hockey team won the national championship in hockey that year. It was a big deal. Well, we also have rules and regulations, which, again, part of the culture is we don't drink before games. And we had a 48-hour limit on any student athletes having alcohol. And so, but the night of the championship happened to be a Monday, and there was a big party afterwards, and we had a game the next day or a day later up in state. And I got wind of it on the way home because some of the kids were upset that 2 of our 3 pitchers, we only had 3 pitchers in our whole bullpen. 2 of them had been at the party. And I knew at that time I had to make a difficult decision. We were going to Minnesota that weekend to play a really meaningful series. We were vying in the hunt for the championship. But I'd leave 2 pitchers home. And I sat in my office and said, I'm leaving him home. We'll elevate one of our walk-ons who did pitch in high school, and we'll get her arm warmed up. And And fortunately, my best pitcher, who was definitely, not that she was a rule follower, but she was disciplined. She didn't go. So we were fortunate, but we had 3-game series. And my staff had a long conversation with me because they said, I really think this can jeopardize us, can jeopardize our success. Maybe we should have them run the stadium stairs or, those kind of things. And I said, no, I feel really strongly that because all we do in sport is teach life lessons. And the life lessons is that you have to be dedicated all the time. You have to be committed to what we're doing. And when you make a commitment to the program, it isn't just when it's convenient for you. And that was a turning point in my career when I made that decision. We went up there with a star pitcher and a walk-on bullpen pitcher, and we annihilated the other team because my team rallied behind that. I had held them strongly accountable, and I'm not so sure I was so good and consistent at it before that time. And I realized that was more important to me than winning, and it had to be. So the things you learn is sometimes we make decisions because it won't help us win. But in the long haul, had I not made that decision, we made it back to the World Series that year. I believe we wouldn't have made it back.
I love the word you used, accountable. I think that's a superpower, right? And for the listeners, Coach Hutchins was being a little modest when she says success. They won the national championship and played their first 33 games that year on the road. And I think they're the first team east of the Mississippi to win the national championship. Softball was a very West Coast advantage sport, obviously weather and some geographical advantages. And so I think it speaks to when holding yourself accountable can be a hard decision in the moment. And Coach Trestman, I want to ask you, speak a little bit about that magic or that ability to overcome adversity, even some self-inflicted adversity. A team rule was broken or an injury or, you have to play more games on the road than maybe you'd like. But almost how the core values that you've lived out, chosen, breathed every day can be that backbone that can lead to some almost unthinkable mountain climbs that we see the outcomes of. We see on SportsCenter and we see these incredible feats, but under the surface, we know that there was a ton of added work, added discipline and accountability and hard decisions that go into that as well.
I think I could be the master of the obvious here by saying that, whatever sport we're coaching, and coaching is our platform. It's not our purpose, right? It gives us the competency to inspire and influence others to become the best versions of themselves on and off the field of play. That's really our job as coaches. But I put a mission statement together after I did my narrative, and the first part of it was I'm going to embrace adversity. And I think that's the master of the obvious answer, is that in our lives and in our businesses, there's going to be the inevitability of adversity. And I love the game of football because it's a zero-sum game. Somebody wins and somebody loses on every play. It's not fluid like a lot of sports. The tackle's going to get beat, or he's going to defeat the defensive end. The corner beats the back, the receiver, and so forth. So in sports and in life, there's going to be adversity, and the way to do it is to embrace it. And we're going to learn from it. It's going to develop backbone. It's going to allow us the opportunity to overcome. And those are the things in sports that are the same things in life. We have the same things with our families, with our whatever job we might have outside of the game. So I think that's part of it, is not only embracing it, but then not going outside of our core values and responding to it. We went my first year in Montreal, we went 3-0, and then we lost. Then we went 0-3, and we went to the Grey Cup that first year, and we were in 0-3. The players were looking around and going, "How are things going to change?" Well, they didn't change. The standard stays the same. And one of the things that I thought Lin brought up, which I think is worth repeating from my standpoint, is in a world of sports where there's competitive equality around, the how, or our behavior on and off the field, is really a strategic choice and becomes a competitive edge. The how becomes the competitive edge because it eliminates high maintenance players and high maintenance coaches, because they're the ones that take 90% of your time, and the 10%, the rest of the team, the other 10% who are doing everything, or 90% who are doing everything right, don't get the time that the one person who's the high maintenance player or coach. So just back to it, I think it's reminding yourself where your values are, doing what Carol did, was staying within the framework of her non-negotiables in terms of the decision that and the core values are what make it really easy. These are things you spent time on. We're going to have humility here. We're going to be respectful of each other. We're going to feel psychologically safe and physically safe in the building and outside the building, whatever that is. But embracing adversity is the number one quality we all have to have in sports and in life, because we're going to lose. We're going to lose players. We're going to have to sanction players who don't stay within the framework of our core values. So again, it just goes to the obvious, is that, God, bring adversity on, And just a last thing, in my first year in Montreal, we were losing by 17 points in the fourth quarter, and you can make that up. And on the sideline in my first year there, and that was my first year as a head football coach, my demeanor was awful. And one of my players walked by me as he was going on, Coach, put a smile on your face. This is what we want. We're going to embrace adversity right here. And we went on to win the game. But, he taught me a lesson that, regardless, when things don't go our way, let's not go outside of ourselves and pretend we're something we're not. Let's go back to our value system and say we're going to embrace adversity. And when we have success, we're going to show humility. And that is, we're not going to make it about ourselves, that we know we've had the success because of the people around us.
What a cool story. I love hearing that real life example of a player who's clearly bought in, and even echoing your culture to you. I think that's just such a great full circle moment. I wanted to ask, Lin, obviously you've coached, you've been an executive, you draft Caitlin Clark, but you've also been an assistant coach at the high major level. You've coached in college. You've probably seen a bunch of different ways core values can take shape. And I know you have a great conviction in your core values. Can you talk about almost the totality of what we're talking, or what our guests have mentioned, but in your vantage point, in your many different seats, and the nuance and complexity that can go into core values in different chairs, whether you're the head coach, whether you're the assistant, whether you're in the front office. And I think using those core values, as I just read recently about this concept of true north. And if you can boil it down to a sentence, Coach Trestman kind of alluded to it, it makes it easy, right? And does that stand true in your experience in the different almost hierarchy levels that you've been in? Because I know you're so well versed throughout the sport of basketball. What kind of thoughts or experiences do you have from core values from different lenses, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's in the corporate world, in the coaching world, in all the worlds. Your culture is so important to the foundation of what you do. It's who you are, it's what you do, it's why you do everything. And it's constantly important that you are emphasizing it, that you're staying consistent, that you're communicating clearly what these values are, the expectations. Everybody is on the same page. Everybody feels valued. And I think that's one of the things leaders probably don't spend enough time with. What am I doing today to make sure everybody in my group, top to bottom, feel important, feel valued, feel like they're part of the team? Have I said thank you enough? Have I appreciated them enough? What am I doing to make everybody feel a part? I do want to say one thing, though. I thought of something when Carol was talking about letting her player go. I had to let a superstar go one time for academic reasons, and it was tough, and she couldn't stand me. I had to kick her off the team. She left the school. 20 years later, she reached out to me and thanked me for doing that to her, because she would have never received a college degree. She said, Coach, I cannot thank you enough for holding me accountable. I will always thank you for helping me get a college degree. So don't underestimate the value you have as a leadership when it comes time to hold accountable. And that means give them one chance, two chance, third chance, you're out. It's not, you try everything you can, but there comes a time when they don't meet the standards, then they have to go. But I just think this whole thing about culture, core values, talent's important, leadership's important, the system's important, but you better have a tough, strong base foundation of your program, and that's your culture.
I think that's a great, Coach Martin, I want to ask you, because I think so many people watching this right now will benefit or will run into that problem where their superstar, their best player, does something or something occurs and they're faced with a hard question or decision. How do I treat this? And I think we've all been on teams at some point, or will at some point, where we start to almost have anxiety or fear that decision could have a negative impact for the team, and you start to weigh your moral responsibility to other players and then predict out future outcomes, and you almost can spiral from there. And so I think you've been an AD, you've been a head coach of multiple sports, you've set records. So I think your perspective would be valuable. Is it cut and dry, no tolerance, or is there some level of nuance to that process that you've maybe run an audit or an algorithm to help determine what that means in that situation relative to that player?
Quick story. I don't think it's cut and dried. I don't think it's black and white. My philosophy has always been to try to, before we have to cut somebody loose, is to do the best I can to help them. Very quick story. We had a young man. He wasn't a starter. He was a decent player. He came off the bench, who was arrested for selling drugs on campus. He was given a suspended sentence downtown in the jail and so on and so forth. So when I talked to my seniors about what we should do, instead of kicking him off the team, their response was, he needs us more than we need him. And so here's what we're going to do. So they had this young man go to all of the elementary schools in Delaware, and there were 6 or 7 of them, in an assembly format. He had to talk to them about drug and alcohol abuse. He had to go to self-help with a therapist every Wednesday, and I needed a note from the therapist to make sure he was there, and so on and so forth. He has since, at that point, and like you, Lynn, he was mad as hell at me and the seniors and so on. Now he owns 2 businesses in Cincinnati, and he's one of our biggest donors. And he's told me to my face multiple times that, Jay, if you hadn't done that to me, I wouldn't be where I am today. Opposed to cutting him loose. Because let me reiterate, my seniors, and I thought this was great, my senior says, he needs us more than we need him. And it turned out to be true. So we, other coaches may have cut him or whatever, and I'm not making judgment on anybody. We just did things a little bit differently, that's all.
No, I love that. I think it's so important to have your own process. I mean, no one's the same person, right? No one has the same culture or core values. I think that's genius. And I think just from my vantage point, I think you have to kind of take it case by case. And I love how you used almost the adversity that came with that as a way to propel that individual to growth that they may not have been able to experience unless they went through that thing or that misstep, if that makes sense. And so I think sifting through it and when you get feedback like that, that it really it solidifies that decision and that process that you have in place. And so I thought that was a great end cap to our roundtable.
Well, thank you, Josh. You've done a great job leading us here today. What a powerful first TV live Daily Coach live at lunch. It's been fantastic to hear all these thoughts about culture, core values, examples. It's just great. And I certainly hope that all of the people that have joined us today find this impactful. We sure hope that you will come back next month. We're going to come up with another coaching hot topic. and we're going to have a fantastic panel that will be with us. We're not sure yet, and maybe reach out to the Daily Coach and tell us some of the topics that you would like for us to address. I really want to thank you again, coaches, Mark, Carol, Jay, for being here, for giving us your thoughts, your values, and just pouring into all of the coaches that have joined us today. We really appreciate it. And bam, you hit a home run. Thank you, thank you, thank you.